You feel it, don't you? That moment when your heart races, your thoughts scatter, and suddenly you're saying things you regret. She's calm, collected, watching you unravel like a puppet whose strings she's masterfully pulling. This isn't random chaos, it's calculation. Have you ever wondered why intelligent, successful men suddenly become emotional wrecks in certain relationships? Why do you find yourself apologizing when you've done nothing wrong? Why does your chest tighten when she doesn't respond to your message for hours? Today, you're about to discover the hidden truth that powerful men throughout history understood. Female emotional manipulation isn't personal, it's strategic. And your emotional stability is the battlefield she's determined to conquer. The stakes couldn't be higher. Every time you lose emotional control, you hand over your power. Every reactive outburst diminishes your standing. Every desperate explanation weakens your position. But after today, everything changes. You'll see through the psychological fog that's kept you vulnerable. You'll understand the precise mechanisms behind her attempts to destabilize you. And most importantly, you'll gain the Machiavellian wisdom to maintain absolute control when everyone else would crumble. You need to understand something fundamental. When she pushes you toward emotional instability, it's rarely about the surface issue. What you're experiencing is a sophisticated power dynamic that operates beneath conscious awareness. Women instinctively know that emotions are the gateway to control. Think about it. When you're emotionally balanced, you make decisions based on your interests and principles. But when emotionally destabilized, you make decisions to relieve discomfort or regain approval. See the difference? This is why emotional manipulation isn't just a female tactic. It's a Machiavellian masterpiece. The 16th century strategist understood that controlling others through their emotions is far more effective than direct force. It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both, he wrote. But the feminine approach inverts this. It's better to be emotionally needed than rationally respected. Let me walk you through the 4 primary tactics she'll use to destabilize you and exactly how they work. Tactic number 1, strategic silence. You send a message. Nothing. Hours pass. Nothing. You check if she's been online. She has. Your mind races. Is she upset? Did I say something wrong? Is she with someone else? This selective silence isn't accidental, it's weaponized absence, and you need to recognize its true purpose. When she withdraws communication suddenly, especially after a period of consistent contact, she creates an information vacuum. Nature abhors a vacuum, and so does your mind. You fill that void with assumptions, usually negative ones. Your emotional equilibrium begins to crack. Her silence forces you into a position of emotional investment. You start checking your phone compulsively. You review previous conversations for potential offenses. You craft the perfect message that might break the silence, and in that process, you've already lost power. You're reacting, not acting. This tactic is particularly effective because it triggers primal abandonment fears. You become willing to compromise your position, apologize unnecessarily, or make concessions just to end the painful uncertainty. And once you do that, she's established a critical precedent. Her withdrawal can modify your behavior. The next time you hold a boundary or express disagreement, that subconscious fear of her withdrawal will influence your decisions. Your independence has been subtly compromised. Tactic number 2, emotional inversion. You're having a calm discussion about something she did that bothered you. Suddenly, she's in tears or coldly distant. Somehow, mysteriously, you're now the one apologizing. How did this happen? This is emotional inversion, the sophisticated art of shifting emotional responsibility. When effectively executed, you enter a conversation as the affected party and leave as the offender. Here's how it unfolds. When you express legitimate concern, she responds not to the content of your message but with an emotional display that demands immediate attention. Your focus shifts from the issue to managing her emotional response. The original matter is buried under this new emotional emergency. What makes this tactic nearly undetectable is how it leverages your protective instincts. You don't want to see her upset, so you backpedal. You question your perceptions. Was I too harsh? Am I being unreasonable? The self-doubt begins. Before you realize what's happened, you're apologizing for bringing up the issue, thanking her for her patience, and promising to communicate better next time. The subject of her behavior has vanished completely. This pattern repeats until raising legitimate concern seems too costly emotionally. You begin to suppress your own needs to avoid triggering these episodes, and that's precisely the goal. Your concerns become secondary to maintaining her emotional comfort. Tactic number 3, consistency testing. You've changed. You're not the man I thought you were. My ex would never have reacted this way. I thought you were stronger than this. Recognize these statements? They're not random observations but calculated tests of your psychological consistency. When she tests you, she's probing for weakness in your self-concept. These tests serve a dual purpose. They assess your internal stability while simultaneously attempting to destabilize it. The mechanism is brilliant in its simplicity. By questioning aspects of your identity you value, your strength, reliability, masculinity, success, she creates an immediate urge to prove yourself. This defensive posture already places you at a disadvantage. You'll notice these tests often arise at pivotal moments, when you've set a boundary, achieved a success, or demonstrated independence. This timing isn't coincidental. It's precisely when your position is strongest that she needs to assess if your foundation can be shaken. Your response reveals everything. Defend yourself too vigorously, and you appear insecure. Ignore the provocation entirely, and she escalates. Seek her approval or validation, and you've handed her the psychological upper hand. What makes these tests particularly effective is their ambiguity. They can always be walked back as just an observation, or I was only joking. But the emotional damage is already done. You're left questioning yourself rather than maintaining your center. Tactic number 4. Affection. Oscillation today, she's passionate, attentive, and affectionate. Tomorrow she's distant, critical, and cold. There's no apparent reason for the shift, no explanation offered. You're left wondering, what changed? Was it something I did? This unpredictable oscillation between warmth and coldness isn't emotional instability, it's psychological conditioning at its finest. Behavioral psychologists discover that intermittent reinforcement, unpredictable rewards, creates the strongest bonds and most persistent behaviors. It's the mechanism that makes gambling addictive and keeps people checking social media compulsively. When applied to relationships, this principle becomes a powerful control mechanism. The unpredictability of her affection keeps you in a constant state of emotional uncertainty. You become focused on identifying patterns, trying to maximize the reward, her affection, and minimize the punishment, her coldness. This creates a dangerous cycle. You modify your behavior based on her emotional temperature. Good morning text ignored today? Perhaps you need to be more attentive. Affectionate response received. You mentally note what you did, right. Before long, you're unwittingly training yourself to prioritize her approval over your authentic expression. Your behavior becomes increasingly reactive, governed by the pursuit of her affection and the avoidance of her withdrawal. What makes this tactic particularly insidious is how it masquerades as natural emotional fluctuation. But make no mistake, when the pattern is consistent in its inconsistency, you're experiencing strategic conditioning, not authentic emotional expression. Now you understand the tactics, but here's the critical revelation. The moment everything changes in the relationship power dynamic. When you emotionally react to her provocations, you activate the transfer of power. This is the precise moment the scepter changes hands. She observes, measures your fragility, and calibrates her influence accordingly. You shift from emotional leader to passive reactor, dominated, predictable, and emotionally coerced. Think about your last emotional reaction. Perhaps it was defensiveness when she compared you to someone else. Maybe it was anxiety when she withdrew affection without explanation. Or frustration when a minor disagreement somehow ended with you apologizing. In that moment of reaction, something profound happened that you likely missed. She gained information about your emotional triggers while you revealed vulnerability. She learned exactly how much pressure to apply next time, while you demonstrated your breaking point. This is why emotional reactions are so costly in Machiavellian dynamics. Each display gives her a more detailed map of your psychological landscape, where the mines are buried, which bridges will collapse under pressure, which walls can be scaled, and with each reaction, the pattern deepens. You become increasingly predictable, your responses more easily provoked. The threshold for triggering you lowers with each episode. What once required significant provocation now needs only a subtle hint. Most dangerously, you begin to anticipate her tactics and react to imagined provocations. You become trapped in a labyrinth of emotional responses to threats that haven't even materialized. This psychological state, hypervigilant, reactive, and insecure, is the end point of successful emotional destabilization. At this stage, direct control isn't even necessary. You've internalized the dynamic so completely that you regulate your own behavior in anticipation of her responses.
The prison has no walls because you've become your own jailer. This is the end game of emotional manipulation, not just influencing your behavior in the moment, but reshaping your emotional responses so thoroughly that external control becomes redundant. You now possess what few men ever discover: the hidden architecture of female psychological strategy. The veil has been lifted, and what seemed like emotional chaos now reveals itself as methodical calculation.
But knowledge without action is merely interesting rather than powerful. So what's the Machiavellian counter-strategy that puts you back in control? The answer lies not in fighting emotional fire with fire, but in becoming emotionally unreactive, the still center of a spinning world. When she deploys strategic silence, match it with comfortable silence of your own. Don't chase, explain, or seek resolution. Your peace isn't dependent on her response. While she expects your anxiety to build, your calm self-sufficiency will disrupt her entire strategy. This isn't about punishing her. It's about demonstrating through action that your emotional state remains self-governed. When she attempts emotional inversion, maintain focus on the original issue with calm persistence. Acknowledge her feelings without accepting responsibility for them. I understand you're upset. Once you're feeling better, we can return to discussing the actual issue. Notice how this response separates her emotional reaction from the legitimate concern you raised. This breaks the cycle of emotional hijacking that has derailed countless important conversations. When she tests your consistency, neither defend nor explain yourself. Your worth isn't determined by her assessments. A simple, interesting perspective, followed by a topic change, communicates volumes about your unshakable self-concept. Remember, elaborate defenses against her accusations only validate the premise that you need to prove yourself to her. Your non-reactivity is more powerful than any argument you could construct. And when she oscillates between affection and coldness, maintain your emotional temperature regardless of hers. Your warmth or distance should reflect your authentic state, not react to her fluctuations. This consistency disrupts the intermittent reinforcement pattern that creates unhealthy attachment. You'll notice something remarkable happen. As her emotional oscillations stop yielding power, they often naturally stabilize. The most powerful position in any relationship is that of the observer rather than the reactor. When you step back and observe these tactics without being captured by them, you gain perspective that few men ever achieve. You see the pattern rather than just feeling the effect. This emotional sovereignty doesn't mean becoming cold or distant. Rather, it means choosing your emotional expressions consciously rather than having them triggered unconsciously. True strength isn't found in emotional suppression but in emotional independence, feeling deeply while remaining uncontrolled by those feelings. Consider the historical masters of power. From Marcus Aurelius to modern leaders, those who maintained composure under emotional pressure weren't emotionally dead. They were emotionally sovereign. Their feelings served them rather than controlled them. Your new path forward requires practice and patience. You'll slip occasionally, reacting before remembering these principles. That's normal. Each time you catch yourself, you strengthen the neural pathways of emotional self-governance. Over time, what once required conscious effort becomes your natural state. As you implement these strategies, you'll notice something profound. The quality of your relationships transforms. Women who rely primarily on emotional manipulation will either adapt to a healthier dynamic with you or find your new stability too challenging and depart. Either outcome serves your growth. The Machiavellian truth is this: absolute control isn't the absence of emotion, it's mastery over it. The woman testing your equilibrium doesn't want your emotional destruction, she wants your emotional surrender. By maintaining your center, you offer the opportunity for a relationship based on mutual respect rather than emotional dominance. Remember, he who maintains his center governs the chaos around him. In the realm of relationships, emotional self-mastery is the ultimate power position. It cannot be taken from you, it can only be surrendered. So tell me, have you experienced these tactics in your relationships? Which one hit closest to home? Comment below with your experiences. If this video opened your eyes to dynamics you felt but couldn't name, hit the like button so others can discover these truths. Subscribe for more insights that no one else will tell you about the hidden rules governing your relationships. And don't forget to check out our previous videos on female psychology. The knowledge you gain might just change everything. Until next time, maintain your center, no matter how fierce the emotional storm becomes. Your power lies not in controlling her, but in refusing to be controlled.